Hello once again, everyone. So this should be a little bit of back and forth, but I am doing the Redux of the affordable armor for over HEMA gear that I did last year in preparation for Ye H.A.W. So what is this video? This is specifically about you already have your base level of HEMA gear, or most of it, or what have you, and you are looking to add armor pieces to it, either to practice harness vectin by itself. Maybe you don't want to buy a full set of armor, but you want to buy some key pieces. Maybe you are building a soldier kit for an event, or alternatively for Ye H.A.W, great event in that regard. Or alternatively, just wearing some pieces does actually, it's its own realm of harness practice. I'll be talking more about that later. But anyway, alternatively, you're just looking to get kind of started and want to understand what's good, what's not for base level pieces. Maybe you're buying for the school, for example. So, firstly, you have your baseline of gear, normal legal stuff. The biggest thing is deciding what pieces you want to layer on top of it. I have laid out the kind of simplest, most affordable, and most useful immediately pieces, and we're going to kind of go through them as we go. So the first thing is if you want to wear any sort of mail, and you care about what you're wearing, you need to look into some form of armor-specific Gambeson or jacket. My recommendation is always to go for some form of Gambeson or padded jacket, because that will help fill out especially if you're a small person, that'll help fill out some of the aches and pains of armor that doesn't perfectly fit you. Alternatively, if you are on the larger side, that can add a little bit of cushion between the sharp edges that may be fitting relatively close. So I got two options. They're actually, and before I get too far ahead, in the description, I have linked a Google document where I've put the links to everything and even some things I don't have currently here. Everything that I've either personally inspected has passed the bar, at least for my event, and as a harness fighter, things that I would trust as good soldier-worthy equivalent. Not everything will perfectly pass if you're looking to go the full harness route. I'll be talking more about that in detail in an upcoming series, but certainly as starting out, everything will be safe. So, with that in mind, first is your padded jacket. This first one is really good if you have a long trunk. So even if you're thicker than me, just being kind of tall and thin, this fits pretty well, sits pretty well. Everything about it is pretty good. The biggest thing you're going to need to do pretty immediately is replace these horrible buttons. So let me go ahead and bring it closer. These annoying, horrible cloth buttons, get rid of them. Replace them with like wooden buttons is my recommendation. The biggest thing when it comes to looking for jackets like this is don't get anything that has separate sleeves. It's just just full, good. And this is not Newton fabric, but this is just fine for Under Armour. And you can even see it's got some nail grease on it. There's also another option that is good if you don't want something so slender. Maybe you have a bit more of a box frame. It's a pullover one that I don't have here currently, but is also linked down below. Basically same material, same sort of idea, nice and simple. Now, alternatively, maybe you want something a little bit more, you could use it in gloss as well. That would be something like this. This is the Spez historical pattern Gambeson. It would also be the same if you were wearing just your normal Gambeson, but the reason I'm showing this is because while this is more expensive for sure, it's more to show when you wear mail over this fabric, this is what happens. I've even cleaned this before. As you see, it's got that grime on it, and it's just never really gonna go away. So if you have a dedicated armor Gambeson, which is exactly what it was, cool, not a problem. If you don't care, slap it on, etc. Just bear in mind that that mail is gonna make it nasty. So things along those lines. That's a good base layer. You can still put all your forearm guards on top of it, etc. Just easy to then layer more armor on. Now, kind of the next piece that most people look into is going over for torso protection. Because you get your base layer, now I want to protect the most important part, my torso. You have two ways you can go, mail or breastplate. My advice is if you do not have a dedicated armor, Gambeson, or jacket, go for the breastplate, because it will not leave that much of a mark really at all on your gear. If you do, go for the mail, and then you can even layer the breastplate on top. So I have 3 different breastplates kinds here. Hopefully I'm on frame right now. You have this one, and I've added this strap, don't worry about that. This is the Globos style. It's small, as you can see. Like this one, actually, I was shocked at how well this fit me. And those of you that might know me in person, I'm not necessarily the broadest guy, but the whole point of it is supposed to sit at the bottom of your ribs. So this is a great starting breastplate, especially if you're a smaller person. This is also, I think, medium size, so a really just good overall quick breastplate. No messing around, just fire it on, you're golden. A good option there. One size up though, again, this also fits me pretty well. It expands a little further. This is from Lord of Battles, and again, everything is linked down below. I put them mostly in the order I'm talking about them because that seems like something I would do. Just goes a little further down, as you can see. Slight articulation, but nothing that actually matters. Covers you pretty well, can really make a difference on the front line. And some people even just use this or the last breastplate as their forever breastplate because they're good, they're solid. These are both 16 gauge, as is the other one, which is more than enough for a breastplate. And you'll notice that this one, again, I'm a relatively slender guy, fits me pretty well. This is a medium. For comparison's sake, this is a large. So if you're measuring out for yourself, you see that's a lot, I'm swimming in that a lot more. So that's the size up, and then I do believe they have an extra large or things along those lines. So again, much bigger, as you can see, but also, you know, if you are wearing the mail underneath, even if you're a smaller person, you may be surprised. It may make you go up in size, in particular if you have a jacket. Now, if you are one of the bigger fighters out there, I do recommend this breastplate. This is it's called the European breastplate. A little bit thinner. It's still 16 gauge, I believe, but it's just something about the construction is just a little bit thinner. Very big, as you can see. Like I'm swimming in this thing. But the good news is this fits all of our bigger guys without difficulty. Only 2 straps, and I'm not necessarily a huge fan of these little buckles. You might end up having to replace those, but that's just popping a rivet and adding a new one. So these all work pretty much off the shelf pretty immediately. A very good option. And so like I said, I've linked them all down below. They're all, as well as some that I don't have, but would also pass muster. It's simple. You slap it on over what you got, and you're good to go. No muss, no fuss. It's not that much of an impediment, but it certainly is a big difference if you've never worn one before, because it changes that target area significantly. Even if you don't have arms, just now it's so much harder to aim not for center mass. Does make your head more of a target, but you can deal with that. You can defend your head. Now the other option is to go for mail. 2 options for you. Firstly, this is just your nice default mail hauberk. This is the short sleeve version. You can go for longer sleeve, but I would recommend going for short because longer sleeve means then you got more mail. It's not tailored. It's going to be kind of obnoxious. This, just throw it on over your, again, armor-specific Gambeson. It'll sit pretty well. This is, I believe, the medium size. Large, again, goes up relatively significantly and also goes up in cost. These have a lot more weight to them. While they're very flexible and don't impede the movement very much, expect that the weight is going to matter a lot more. You'll want to get a nice thick belt to help stretch it in, even if you are wearing a breastplate over it. So you'll want to practice in it a decent amount, and the larger shirts are heavier because there's more metal. Those, for reference, are 9mm, 9mm. That's the size of the ring. That's plenty fine. That's about the biggest you want. Riveted mail, all the things in the Google Doc down below are riveted, so they're all safe. Some are wedge, some are dome, round rings, flat rings, that doesn't matter, but nice and simple. If you go smaller than that, 6mm, 8mm, what have you, the weight increases because the rings are smaller, so to cover the same area, there are now more rings. Bear that in mind. Now, if you don't want to go the full shirt route, and this also works if you're like okay-ish with getting your Gambeson kind of meh, but not that bad, another great option is to get something like a mantle. This is a bishop's mantle, often referred to, or you'll see these very commonly worn in the Launchnick era. This just slides over, and it doesn't need any solid protection behind it, because you're just throwing it over your normal Gambeson collar. So you have your gorget on that underneath, right? Slide that on, that drapes this far on pretty much everybody. So that's your upper shoulder target, pretty much secure. If you're wearing a breastplate, you can put the breastplate straps over it, and now that's covering right here. That's not a bad option. Very cheap, very simple, covers a lot of stuff, a lot of bang for your buck, frankly, which is why they were very popular. But that's really all I recommend for the mail route. You don't really want to go more complicated than that for just simple armor, because mostly, again, this is marketed toward Ye H.A.W. You're fighting sometimes in armor for the first time, or even if you have fought in armor before, being in more of a soldier's kit's not a bad idea. So lighter is better. Stuff you can very easily layer down or layer up is usually good. Now, the next thing that people are going to look at is arms, because this gets hit a lot. This gets hit a lot. Let's put some armor on there. The biggest thing you want to look out for is I do not recommend going for anything complex. These are fine. These are good arms, but I've not linked any like this down below because to wear these correctly, you must have a garment that can support them. These need to be pointed up onto your arms. And if you want to do that modification, by all means, do so. There's lots of good options out there, but that's beyond the scope of what I'm looking for right now, which is just nice, simple, slap it over your HEMA gear. If you're wearing your normal Gambeson, you'd have to add points to it. That's more complicated than I want to get into. And to be fair, getting used to articulated arms or full piece like that, that takes a while. It's just more complex than I'm willing to get into. So great, not what we're thinking of. Instead, the bits that I do recommend are things like this. So these are large, as you can see, but these are some nice, simple elbow cups or counters. These are big, right? But they do cover a lot of surface area, and I used to wear these just slapped over that exact Gambeson, as a matter of fact. You can find smaller ones than this, and I tried to put some down below. You can find some on like Steel Mastery, Arm Street, etc. Those are going to be a little pricier, but they're also good quality. So just a simple little elbow cup that you put in place of where would be your normal protection. Boom, you now have steel elbows. That doesn't necessarily make a huge difference when you're fighting in the field, but can make a difference if you're looking to practice more harness fecting specifically, because now you do want steel on your arms. And along with it, VAM braces. Now I only have one pair of VAM braces here because honestly, most off-the-shelf VAM braces suck. I'm gonna be honest, they just completely suck. They're either too big, they're too thin, they're only like half VAM braces or something along those lines, but these, I'm actually incredibly impressed with. These, again, I've linked them down below. They close all the way over, they're good steel, they're lined on the inside, which is nice, and yes, obviously, I don't have anything on right now, so they're big on me, but with my Gambeson, they actually sit just fine. A lot of my guys have been getting these as their simple VAM braces. They're great, they extend nice and far, so if you have short arms, that might be a bit of an issue, but elbow cup this, boom, there's your arms, slap some gauntlets on, you're good. They're nice and strong, so I can actually recommend these as good starting VAM braces, because honestly, finding VAM braces can be a bit of a pain. Now another option, if you feel more crafty and you're willing to do so, is you can do what we have done now, which is, last time I did the video I showed off jack chains, which again, those just have to go over your gear, because you do still need, since these ones especially don't have an elbow to them, they're just chains, right? You'd still need your hard elbow protection. What you can do, and what I think I talked about back then, is we've made a forearm guard that is strong enough at least for melee, Ye H.A.W style melees. If you're fencing with steel, then you might want something a little more robust than this, and then pointed it to the outside. You could modify any forearm guard to achieve the same thing, and if anything hits you there, you don't care. The only thing that you'd need to be aware of is to really make these do what they need to do. You do need to attach it up on the top to something. In particular, if you're wearing just a male shirt, right, or one of those male mantels, you could point it up onto the side of that and boom, that's suspended. Now that's moving the way it should and protecting you from cuts, because that's really all it's going to do. So if you are looking for a way to make something like that, this works out pretty well. And they're very cheap, nice and simple, but it does require a little bit of crafting on your part, points, you can rivet it, what have you. Now when it comes to gauntlets, finally protecting your hands, I will say this. If you're just looking to make a basic soldier kit, and you don't want to really care about getting into harness fecting on its own, for its own pursuit or what have you, and you just want to come play and that's it, I'd just stick with your Spez Heavies, honestly. They're plenty safe, plenty reliable, nothing you could encounter on the field would be too dangerous for them, and since you're not interested in further, specifically like fighting in the list one-on-one with axes, they're fine. However, if you do want to get gauntlets, I've linked a bunch of different ones. Here's the biggest things to look out for. Is number one, and that's why I brought out these mittens. There aren't very many good mittens available. Lots of hourglass, even some Gothic style, but not much in the way of mittens. I don't know why. If someone would just corner that market, we'd have a wonderful world. But most mittens are going to be kind of like this, which we do use these, and they're okay. But that thumb is not great for longevity. We had to add this pad so that your fingers weren't just floating out there in space. And that's really the biggest problem you'll encounter, is that these are just slapped on the back of the glove. Not really useful. So my advice would be, Don't freak out about trying to find mittens. You're probably not going to. If you are looking for gauntlets, some options for you. Probably the best ones and the simplest ones you could get are just these. These are the hourglass gauntlets from Lord of Battles. It's kind of one size fits all. Everything you'd want. Back of the hand's nice and protected. The fingers are pretty good. The only complaints I could have with these is that you will end up replacing this glove. Guaranteed. Most every off-the-shelf gauntlet, you're going to end up replacing the glove. It's not that hard to do, for one, and this will certainly at least last you a bit. You know, a couple melees, couple practices, what have you. So you have some time. But again, these are fine. There are a couple others I linked down below that I don't have. They're fine. You may also find some other examples like this. These are a little bit, I guess you could say fancier, though they're about the same price, but just, you know, slightly different style of fingers, you know, nice and like that. So options, again, presented. Basically, you're looking for just, you know, well-made stuff, which everything down below will pass muster. Something else you can look into is these, which are the Visbys from Age of Craft. They also have a mitten version. These are brigandine style, so these are plate underneath. These are just fine for infantry stuff. They're also not bad for harness, because they were meant for bow hurt, so they can take a pounding. The biggest complaint that you'll have with these if you get them is that they will degrade over time and they're harder to fix compared to something like that where you can just pop off the pieces and put them on a new glove. When these degrade, they become a lot of little useless pieces, so it takes some work to put them back together. But off the shelf, they'll fit pretty well, they'll work pretty well, they're great. Yeah, so they're fine. Now, if you want to go more complicated, and these are ones that I replaced the glove on, you can go for something like this, where it's a longer gauntlet. You would still, of course, need forearm protection underneath this, but, you know, that's now securing a lot more of your arm, so maybe I still wear my forearm guard, but I don't need to get a steel vambrace, because now to cut my arm, you got to go all the way back here. And I did replace the glove on these, but these gauntlets are pretty good. There's two of them linked down below, which they'll serve just fine. These are heavy though. I guess to make the finer plates, they had to make them a little bit thicker, so you're gonna feel the weight much more than you will these others, but I guess you are getting more bang for your buck, so bear that in mind. So really, when it comes to gauntlets, again, if you're just looking to come play, just looking to do light stuff like that, don't worry about gauntlets. Stick to the heavies, you'll be fine. If you are looking to get into further things, then start looking into gauntlets. All the ones down below will be just fine, but expect to have to replace the gloves. Now the final category is getting into helmets. Helmets are a tricky one. As far as open face helmets, soldier kit helmets, which is really all I recommend for melee stuff, because wearing a closed face helmet but you're still only wearing like a gambeson and a breastplate is not very useful. You are better off being more visible. Again, the most important pieces you have are your hands and your eyes. If you can't use those, you're useless. Better to eschew protection for better mobility and usefulness. Protect the important parts, your organs. But if you want a helmet, I do recommend going for some form of open face helmet, and I finally found a source. So, last time I did this, I showed off these modified kettle helmets we had, which was, we're gonna adjust these, but you see how this basically works. It's a, off-the-shelf helmet. We added a perf plate face to it, and what we used to do is we'd wear the bever underneath to secure that. We're modifying them right now to attach the bever to the faceplate, so it'll make it a little bit safer as well. You could do something along those lines. A couple people have those. They're not uncommon in the SCA, etc. But something along those lines can work. Depends upon how handy you want to be. However, if you don't want to do that much work, which the whole point of this is to make it simple, I do recommend the open face helmets from either munitions grade arms or Barina Emporium, which I have two different kinds here, one modified, one unmodified. So this is their Salette unmodified. So that's what it comes like with the visor. All you do is you run the visor through that like a little clap visor, and you just attach it around the back, boom. Open face helmet, but it's a helmet all the same. Thing is though, these do not come with a liner of any kind. They come with a chin strap, but no liner. You can add your own liner or helmet foam or whatever, and a lot of people do. A cheaper way of doing that, though it's not going to be as good of a fit, is to get a hood like this, nice padded hood. Wear that over, whatever you're wearing, then put the helmet on. That'll do the job. Though certainly, if it's your own helmet, you can muck around and modify it and getting fitting a lot quicker, better. But that's exactly what we did with this one, which is my Berganet, which I'm going to talk about this again in more detail in a different video, but for example is what you could do. Made a full liner, did a little bit of adjustment there, so now when I have the visor in there, it closes up, there we go. It's hard to put on nothing, anyway, there we go. Closes up nice and secure, boom, not a problem, and that'll be just fine for anything you want to do. The biggest thing about fighting in an open face helmet is you get good mobility, good visibility rather. Like those feel about the same as a fencing mask. Obviously I'm more used to being in helmets, so there is that bias, but really you get a lot of visibility. You still get that protection, so spears or swords you don't really care about. Axes you care about now though, but your face is open, so bear in mind of that. The only closed face helmet that I recommend, I do not currently have here. I have the way you would modify it though. So it's a clap visor from Order Battles that is in the Google Doc. The biggest thing about any sort of helmet that is a bassinet is you need an aventail. You can't just slap it on and call it good, even if it does have a liner, because if it doesn't have that aventail, it's a huge gap right here, and you're going to die a horrible death. What you need, and what you can do, if you don't want to muck around with making a good male aventail, which is a process, get something like this. It's just a simple leather collar, flared out, that covers that gap. Doesn't count as protection, of course, but does cover that whole area. So if someone gets you in the neck, you're out, but certainly makes you safer. We also went ahead and added a steel plate here just because this particular helmet, again, I only recommend one. This particular helmet has a bit of a chin gap, so that makes it safer. That will only count as protective gear under our rules, but point being, there's a usable helmet without having to muck around with the aventail. So again, that's in the description, and that one already comes with plenty of padding in the head, just no aventail. Regardless though, you are going to go for the helmet route. The most important piece you get yourself a coif. The reason this matters is because if you're just bareheaded or wearing something like this, right, honestly get two, it doesn't cover the top of your ears. Put this on, it's covering the top of those ears, keeping your hair together, especially if you have a male shirt, because let me tell you, there's no pain worse than getting mail stuck behind your ears. But different format than I did last time, and I didn't go into whatever base layer gear you're wearing, but the whole point of it is, again, to just reiterate, if you already have your normal fencing gear, right? Preferably longsword legal is what we're looking for Ye H.A.W, right? And that's what I recommend if you're going to start messing around with armor, because that's not my weapon all the time. If you're fine getting grease on it, or you're just looking for a couple pieces of the plate, breastplates, maybe something on the arms, maybe gauntlets, cool, pretty well armored, maybe a helmet, right? But bear in mind, if you don't want to be crafty, right, just keep it simple. Honestly, just get the breastplate. If you're okay with having mail, get yourself an armor-specific Gambesons. It's going to get disgusting. Then get the mail. Then, honestly, that's plenty fine by itself, right? Then you can maybe layer up onto it over time. That's a great base level. And that's kind of the two main approaches I would say. It's the I just want to play in this game set and not die a lot. Breastplate, boom, you are so much better than most people. I want to actually start building a harness, mail shirt, then start adding pieces. Now I didn't go over the prices of everything because a lot of them aren't on the top of my head. Everything down below, link straight to where you can get it. Prices are there. These are all reasonably. Honestly, the most expensive piece is either the helmets, another reason to maybe not mess around with them, or the mail shirt. It's worth it, especially the mail shirt, because it'll last you forever. But for the most part, keep it simple. Those are only about a little over $100 each, and it makes such a big difference. So those are the affordable armors I recommend for over HEMA gear, and also if you want to start looking into doing more harness vectin. All the links down in the description, nice and straightforward, and that is what I would recommend going for. Everything that I've talked about here, we'll put in that document, will be Ye H.A.W legal if that's specifically what you're looking for, which is why I'm making this video. But certainly if you're looking to pursue harness fighting as its own thing, I'm going to start doing a series of videos talking just about my harnesses, the pieces I've worn, the pieces I've literally fought in or had to change for various rule sets. That might give you more detail. So stay attuned for that if that's what you're interested in. Otherwise though, thank you very, very much for watching. I hope to see many of you in November, in or out of armor. And we will go over some other stuff another time.